And now, the counting done, the numbers written, the tests scored against thresholds, you cannot move. Now you may read it. Go back through the 30 pages properly, slowly, with time for it. Read day 4, and read day 4 when you did not know what you were doing and wrote it down anyway. Read day 8, the night you asked whether you were making all of this up and did not get a comforting answer, and you kept going. Read day 13, where something you had been quietly proud of died, and you scored it a miss on a night where nobody would have ever known if you had softened it. Read the boring ones. There are a lot of boring ones, and they are the reason any of the rest of it can be trusted. Let yourself be moved. You've earned that, and I'm not going to take it from you. Also, notice what you have that almost nobody has. You're reading your own month alongside a tally. You can be moved by day 13 and also know precisely that the pattern which died there was one of 4 you killed. You can feel the arc of it and simultaneously hold the fact that your void sat in the same corner 22 times and did not move when you asked it to. Feeling and measurement side by side, neither one contaminating the other. That is what a month of discipline bought you, and it is not available to people who did not do the counting first. The story you tell yourself about this month will be true. That is rarer than you think. Now, what are you allowed to conclude? And I want you to be as strict tonight as you have been all month, because the temptation to overreach is highest at the end. You may say, across 30 sessions, under these conditions, my field did X. This pattern survived testing. This one did not. My voids favor this region and did not move when I rotated the table. I have a blind spot in the upper left, and I have 4 marks proving it. Those are earned. They are yours. They are stated at the right scope, and every one of them could have come out otherwise. You may not say the method works. You may not say this proves the field is real. 30 days was never going to settle that. I told you so on day 25, and I'm not going to soften it on day 30 because we arrived somewhere emotional. And I want to be clear that this is not a disappointment, and it is not the practicum of Spatial Psy falling short. It is what an honest instrument looks like when it is pointed at a hard question. 30 days of careful records does not settle the metaphysics. Anyone who tells you it does is selling something, and you have spent a month acquiring the equipment to notice. What 30 days was enough for, to find out whether you can produce a disciplined record, to discover which of your patterns survive testing and which collapse, to learn what your hands do and do not under strict conditions. That is a real yield. It is smaller than what you wanted on day 1, and it is more solid than anything you could have obtained by wanting more. Measure what you have against what 30 days could honestly deliver, not against what you hoped for. The gap between those two is where practitioners break their own hearts, and you do not have to. And before you close the book, find the one thing. I told you to hunt for it on day 28, and now is when you look. Something you did not expect, that you didn't want, that you recorded anyway because the procedure made you. It is there. I'm confident of it because you've been running a machine designed to produce exactly that for 30 days, honestly. It might be a void that sat stubbornly in a region you had no interest in. A pattern that failed while you were certain it would hold. A mismatch between geometry and cards that you refused to resolve that is still sitting there unresolved and still annoying you. A miss you recorded on a night when softening it would have cost you nothing and no one would have known. Find it and put it in section 5.5, the unstructured page, the one with no prompts, the one the book says there is no wrong way to fill, because that is the entry that proves the whole thing. Every other finding in your notebook could, in principle, have been produced by wanting. You wanted a pattern, and there it is. You wanted the void to mean something, and look, it does. That one could not have been produced by wanting. It arrived against your wanting, and it is on the page only because you built something that does not care what you want, and then you obeyed it on a night when disobeying would have been easy and invisible. That is not a finding about the field. That is a finding about you. I want to point out something that you may not have noticed, and it is the design of the entire Spatial Psy workbook. Every one of those pages is identical. Day 1 and day 30 have the same fields, the same 5 steps, the same prompts, in the same order, with the same amount of space. Nothing was added as you improved. Nothing was made more advanced. The workbook did not develop alongside you. That was not laziness. It is the most important design decision in the workbook, because an instrument that changes cannot measure anything. You learned that on day 18, on the plateau, when nothing seemed to be improving. And the reason it mattered was this: if the page had gotten more sophisticated as you did, then the difference between your day 1 entry and your day 30 entry would tell you nothing at all. It would just mean the page had changed. The page held still for 30 days. It asked you exactly the same questions, which means that every difference between the first entry and the last one is a difference in you. There is nowhere else it could have come from. The page never changed. You did. And that is why the count test works, and why it is the only proof of progress this method has ever accepted, and why it is sitting there on your table right now in your own handwriting where nobody can argue you out of it. The workbook was never the Spatial Psy curriculum. It was the instrument, and it held still so that you could be measured. And then there is a Tuesday. The Spatial Psy Practicum ends tonight. Nothing else does, unless you let it. And the way it ends is not dramatic. Nobody renounces anything. There is simply a week, and then another one, and nothing was ever scheduled. You made a decision about this on day 27. Go and honor it. The night. You wrote a date, an actual date for your first post-practicum Spatial Psy session. It is in the notebook. Go and look at it right now, tonight, while the structure is still holding you up. The rate, 1 session a week, not 3. You know why. 3 a week is 150 sessions a year. You will not do it, and when you fail, you will not lower the target. You will conclude you have lapsed, and a person who believes they have lapsed does not return. Build the floor. The ceiling takes care of itself. The card. 4 constraints: the map freeze, the disconfirmation line, the pen, geometry before meaning, written on a card kept with the deck. Not in the book. The book is going on a shelf, and we both know it. The deck is what you'll pick up. And when you sit down on that first Tuesday, with no video waiting, and no page with a number on it, and nobody expecting anything of you, you will find out what you actually built this month. Not on day 30, on day 38, when nothing is happening and you sit down anyway. That is the real test, and it is not tonight, and I will not be there for it. That is day 30. That is the Spatial Psy Practicum. You counted first. You scored your tests against thresholds you could not move. You wrote down the things that did not survive, and then you read your own month alongside a tally, which means the story you tell yourself about it will be true, and that is rarer than you think. Somewhere in those 30 pages is a thing you did not expect, did not want, and recorded it anyway. That is the proof, not of the field, of you. You did not build a notebook. You built a machine that does not care what you want. Most people never have one. Their instrument agrees with them, and always has and always will. Yours has told you no, on the record, in your own handwriting. The page never changed. You did. And now the last thing, which are the closing words of the Spatial Psy book, and which I've been saving for exactly this moment. That is the Spatial Psy practice. Return to it whenever the table is in front of you. There are no conditions on that sentence. Not when you need answers, not when you have a question worth asking, not when you feel ready or moved or gifted. Whenever the table is in front of you. The practice does not wait to be needed. That is what makes it a practice rather than a resource. And it means the flat weeks are not the price of the good ones. The flat weeks are the thing itself. So pick up your card deck, keep your Thursday, write it down. You are not asked to believe. You are asked to record. Thank you for these 30 days. I want you to hear that plainly, because I've withheld praise for a month, and this is not praise, it's gratitude. You gave a stranger 30 nights and asked for nothing back but the truth. And you got it, and some of it was not what you wanted. I will not see you tomorrow. That is not sentiment, it is the design. If this only worked while I was talking, it was never yours. Tonight, it becomes yours, and I become unnecessary, which is the only ending an honest method is allowed to have. So, close the book, put the card with the deck. Somewhere ahead of you is an ordinary Tuesday with nothing riding on it and no one watching and no reason at all. And you will sit down anyway. That is the whole thing. That was always the whole thing. Go and sit down at your table.